Hello and welcome to episode 179 of Dissonant Waves. God, am I exhausted. Fuck. My name is Domino. Ritz and Trix are here. Hello.
Hello.
Bonjour.
And we've got a ton of stuff to talk about.
Most of it mine.
I mean, to be fair, it's another Radiohead and Muse episode week. I've chosen the supergroups. Coincidentally, the supergroups just kind of line up with each other of these bands. We've covered the Jaded Hearts Club before, but this is their proper album. You've always been here. And I also chose Atoms for Peace, the album Amok. Now, to remind you, we didn't really go over it last week, actually. But Atoms for Peace is Tom York, of course. And I believe it is Flea, Nigel Godrich, Joey Warraconer, and Mauro Rafosco. So, Flea and Tom York, and some other people.
And just a cat in the background there the whole time, which is just complaining.
Yes.
Is that a foreshadowing? What else are we doing, Dominic?
Yes.
I'm willing to kill your voice here.
We got Nothing and Full of Hell, their collaboration When No Birds Sang, that's Ritz's pick. And Trix chose a trio of albums. Joe P's Garden State Vampire, Rainbow Kitten Surprises Love Hate Music Box, and Dr. Dog's self-titled Dr. Dog.
Indeed.
Where do we want to start?
We usually don't start with the Muse Radiohead. And this week, I want to start with the Muse Radiohead.
I do too.
We've been doing that more and more often lately, I think, to get it out of the way.
Maybe, yeah. But maybe we have. At the start, I know we have. Well, not at the start, sorry. With like drones and stuff, I know we have.
Yeah, usually it's
maybe,
at the end.
Maybe I'm just a forgetful man. But either way, I'd like to get some Radiohead out of the way.
All right, Amok, the only album by Atoms for Peace, the super side group project, came out in 2013. I love this album. I listened to it when I was in college. It is a very big album for me, circa 2014.
This is, to interrupt you here, but I guess also pad out. This was kind of the reason you wanted to do this, wasn't it? The whole Muse Radiohead.
Yes, I think exploring how we got here is really fascinating, considering where Radiohead started, where Tom York kind of started in the solo career, and how this is a weird amalgamation of all of that.
Yeah,
because this group started out as the band that was performing the Eraser, Tom York's album, live, and just kind of evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
So a thing that I've mentioned over the whole of the Muse, Radiohead, and side project stuff. I guess the way that we divulged into it is the hottest 100 placings. I've done it as a reference to kind of compare the successes of both bands, and a big key thing that we've noticed now is that Muse have completely dropped out, whilst Radiohead have continued to at least have something place in every album. And I kind of stopped doing it because Muse didn't keep making it. They've stopped making it. And Jaded Hearts Club obviously didn't make it. It's a covers band.
Yeah.
But all the Radiohead albums had something from it. Even though I believe the Bends didn't have anything at the year, it had it in the old time countdowns with Fake Plastic Trees. Tom York's solo project did have something as well. It had, I believe, Black Swan. It came in the hottest 100. Atoms for Peace. How many do you reckon got it into the countdown, Dominic?
I'm gonna give it 2.
2?
Mm-hmm.
0.
Fair enough.
And that's just the kind of surprising thing that like this wasn't a kind of whole I guess like deep trivia about Radiohead or Tom York. Like this is a pretty well regarded album.
Yeah.
I mean, I think critically, it's on the lower end of like what is out there. It's certainly not lauded like
but
like
hottest 100 isn't critically. That is commercially.
Yeah.
and commercially it was still holding up.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. 11 on the ARIA charts, it hit #1 in several of the U.S. Billboard kind of intermediate charts. #2 overall, actually, in the 200 chart. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I need to check it. I'm pretty sure none of it made the 200 either. Just from my own memory. I could be wrong. There could be one that stuck into there. And this is my first time having listened to Atoms for Peace in full. I've kind of given it a bit of a listen there and then. And after having listened to it in full, I can kind of see why nothing made the 200, because
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, nothing stands out in this.
Hard to disagree.
If I had gotten into Radiohead and stuff through this album, yeah, probably something would stand out. But the fact is, this is it's in a state where it feels like we've heard this sound so many times that we've become a bit I guess what's it, just a bit too used to it. There's a term for that. It's escaping my mind.
Stereotypical?
But, no, not stereotypical. It's like kind of disillusioned, but not that kind of.
Shit. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, we know the word that I'm on about. There'll be someone who goes, "This is the fucking word," and I'm like, "Well, should have told me 3 weeks ago when we recorded this." But yeah, just a bit too used to the sound. It's just not. It's not hitting.
Yeah.
The same way.
This feels like the Eraser 2, and I didn't have much to say about the Eraser, so.
I think it's a step above the Eraser. I think the Eraser was interesting, but rather, it's a debut album. You know, it's exploring concepts, but not fully. I think executing on like how does it come together rhythmically and like melodically and all that. I think this is a much better. God, Cat, come on, Manny, get down. It's a much better evolution.
Now you know why I block Monty in the bathroom when we record our interviews.
Yes.
And look, getting the context that this was basically the live band for the Eraser, I'll keep that in mind for the rest of this. But I feel like it's still worth kind of mentioning that this is a supergroup.
Yeah.
But it's really just Tom York is like writing. It's not really. I mean, I guess they had the Radiohead producer in there, would probably also have some of that influence that's come into this. But it's you feel like for a supergroup of bands that are, whilst yes in the same time period with Red Hot Chili Peppers and REM and Beck to an extent and Radiohead. I mean, if I told you that Radiohead sounded like Beck, or if Radiohead sounded like Red Hot Chili Peppers, or if Radiohead sounded like REM, or vice versa, you would probably tell me, and rightfully so, that I'm a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
They're completely different sounding bands, and we could have had a lot more of those different influences come in from this. And I'm not saying this as the criticism of the album, because the album still is its own thing, but it's just there was a bit more potential for this.
I mean, sure, if you want to like kind of open it out like that, like with all the different elements coming together, could it have been a lot more different than what Tom York's done before? I guess. I don't know. Well, if it's a side project, what's the point of doing a side project that's just the same as what you're currently already doing? I know, I guess there's the case of different members or other shit that goes around, but when it comes to actually I think the difference is that I think the Eraser is a lot more electronic solely, but this is, I think, meant to be a little bit more of the live instrumentals mixed with the electronic production. Where I think like it's kind of cutting together different pieces and having that electronic influence in there, so you get some repetitive guitar and drums and all that. But I do think the live instrumentation helps it stand out a little bit more from what's come before. I think Before Your Very Eyes, at the very least, is a beautiful, beautiful intro. I've always really, really liked that song. Very nice, very, really crisp Tom York singing, which you don't always get. And each song just kind of stands out in different ways and has, interesting. You know, sometimes it's the beginning that kind of hits you. Sometimes it's where the song ends up as it crescendos and goes through its route that ends up being really interesting. Sometimes it's just there's a certain beat to it, like Judge, Jury, and Executioner just sounds really fun and groovy and interesting. Or Reverse Running just has that really twangy guitar in it. It just hits you with that opening. But as we've come to with this series, it's more of just me when there's a good album for me reminiscing about how much I liked it, and then you two are kind of like, well, yeah.
Yeah, welcome to music discussion.
I do have one compliment for the album, Domino.
Yeah.
And this is the best that I think Flea has ever sounded, because he's tamed himself, and he's not on every song.
Yeah. I mean, he's the bass, you know, you like a good bass, so I'm sure you were listening to that.
Yes.
What, did anything stand out particular for that?
Which track was it? I'm pulling up the track listing. Give me a second.
Well, whilst you do that, I did mention it as well before, the Hottest 100 placing of it. And whilst we're doing a retrospective of the time period, I may as well go into kind of what did make it, because the year, I kind of had to get into my head what year was Atoms for Peace. For some reason, I thought it was earlier, but it was 2013.
Yeah.
And 2013 had, well, something that came out stronger in kind of all spheres of the music, in just how it was that year. I mean, one of the biggest albums of indie rock, which is, I guess, not really feels like indie rock anymore of how big it got, but Arctic Monkeys AM, that was basically the rock album of that year.
Yeah.
The electronic album of that year, well, that was Daft Punk Random Access Memories.
Of course.
The breakout indie that year was Lord.
Kind of an amazing feat to think about. This doesn't really.
I'm not even done, because kind of the whole album that was more of a retrospective back then of music and how it exists was the Vampire Weekend album. Yeah. So it had a lot to compete with, admittedly, with people who would have been in that kind of same sphere. It's understandable, I guess, that people wouldn't have paid too much attention to the Atoms for Peace album, especially when people probably would have wanted the new Radiohead.
Yeah.
And like we're going to get there, but go ahead, Trix.
The song that stuck out, by the way, was Stuck Together Pieces.
Okay. I can see that.
It's got a fun little bass riff in that.
Sorry. I'll quickly just continue on this retrospective for 2 seconds and get back to you. The other kind of big thing is that, outside of just the Daft Punk and electronic, was kind of the sound of electronic and indie that was happening around this time, because the XX was starting to break out. And we had acts that followed a kind of similar vibe into them start to break out as well. We had acts like Churches come out. We had acts like London Grammar. And, you know, it's not the same type of electronic as Atoms for Peace was, but the thing was is that this was a newer sound, and Atoms for Peace was the sound that had already kind of been done.
It does stand apart from a lot of those other kind of projects coming out of that time. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I think at the
whether
time,
or not in a good way is I guess irrelevant, but not exactly, because we are covering it.
Yeah. At the time, I was probably still a little biased against newer music, and so I was following a band that I had gotten into more recently at the time, and kind of just...
Oh, and the other one. The other one I've forgotten about, but fairly so, I guess, is the Arcade Fire album, Reflector.
Oh,
God. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Yeah. I remember when that music video aired, and I think SNL did a whole thing for that.
But that's the whole thing. That was the kind of changing of indie. I know it hadn't exactly just done it in 2013, but I think if you had to pinpoint a year in which kind of that whole indie soundscape completely changed and broke out in a way that shaped music that we hear today, I would say 2013 was the most kind of relevant year for that.
It's hard to imagine like a band like this existing now. Like, I will definitely agree with you there. Like, this feels dated, but also very specifically of its time, even though it's only 11 years old. But it also really, like, comparing it to all of those, it does not feel like it's part of the contemporaries. But I don't know. It's really strange because I would never say, oh man, this feels like it's from the mid 2000s. This feels like it's
I honestly thought it was 2009 off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
For some reason, I thought this was before King of Limbs.
It was before King of Limbs.
It was after
before King of Limbs.
Yeah. I know. I don't know why I thought that.
Maybe it's just a matter of my brain having Stockholm syndrome of like, hey, I liked it, so I just kept listening to it a lot. But
that's fair. Nostalgia is a heavy drug. And don't get me wrong, this is not a bad album. I'm not trying to say it's a bad album. I'm just trying to say it's just not as. I mean, with the hype that we took to get here, it's definitely not living up to it because
which is unfortunate.
It just feels like a sequel more than an evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think this is the best of the week by any means. I do think more modern music has outdone it, and that's totally fine. I don't know. I just remember this being a very important album to me, and it's one of those albums that I know in my brain how those songs sound, how they're sequenced. I can just almost hear them, and I can hear them changing, and I can almost tell you what's coming next just after hearing a part of the song. It's just very baked into.
That's fair. I personally am attached to worse albums, so
I also took a minute to listen to the B-sides tonight, and the B-sides I would say are not bad either. Like they're not as standout perhaps, but for a project that existed for only a couple years, the output that they have, it's certainly better than other supergroups that have been out there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think just some of these songs are really beautiful and I think deliver on what the Eraser was trying to do. Like, I listened to the Eraser at that time, and I liked parts of the Eraser, but this was the album where, like, yes, okay, I get it.
I will say, just speaking on the Eraser and Amok, I like how the album art kind of fits together.
Yeah, I guess I never considered that they are two of a kind in a way. But the Amok album art, I think, would be really cool to have on vinyl.
Yeah, or
Just
like a T-shirt.
Yeah, just aesthetically.
Also, I think the single art, I'm gonna screenshot it right now. I feel like that attaches to the Eraser a little bit better.
Probably. I never paid attention to single art half the time, but yeah, that does. Huh. Interesting. Okay.
I've got nothing else to say about this album, unfortunately.
Me either, really.
I said my piece. I still very much like Reverse Running.
Wait, have you said your atoms for peace?
I have not said my Dwight D. Eisenhower speech on nuclear proliferation or anything like that, no. But I do think that Before Your Very Eyes remains a very, very beautiful song. Judge and Jury and Executioner is fun. Reverse Running, one of the stronger openings of songs that I've heard, even this week, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, I still vibe with it. It doesn't have a hold on me like it did. It doesn't have like the staying power that I was kind of hoping for. But for me, as a personal project to get to this point, I am satisfied because I now understand a little more of what happened and how we got here. And maybe that's only interesting to me. And at this point, I'm the only one propping up this little journey we've been on. No one's clamoring for this. I'm sure you two would be glad to be done when we get there. But
only somewhat.
A little bit.
But that's also why I'm trying to just get us to finish, because I think we can move on from this and put this to bed and get on to bigger and better things.
Well, first we have to finish up the other side of this one.
Yes.
I don't really have favorites or least favorites of Adam's piece, by the way. He was kind of a blender. If that pisses off somebody outside of Dominic, welcome to Dissonant Waves. Dominic, I'm sure you have a favorite or least favorite, so...
Before Your Very Eyes and Reverse Running are my two favorites. If I had to pick a least favorites, Ingenue, maybe, or maybe Default. I don't know, somewhere in there. But nothing super strong. Nothing super strongly stands out as the least favorite.
This was also a blunder for me, but I'll point out Stuck Together Pieces as a favorite, I guess.
All right. Well, let's flip that coin. Let's go to the other side of this and finish up the Jaded Hearts Club.
I have a very quick review for this one. If no one wants to object with any intro,
Go ahead.
Go for it.
Last week we covered one of the best cover albums we've done on this podcast. Now we've covered one of the most boring cover albums we've done on this podcast. It was more interesting when it was live. I genuinely just can't say anything else more about that. There's nothing interesting that's happening. It's just straight covers by the supergroup that we covered a while ago. None of it's doing it really in their own style. It's not necessary. This is really not necessary.
You'd think bringing together Jet and Muse and whatever else people are in,
the Zootones, Blur.
You'd think that
Last Shadow Puppets.
Yeah, that there would be a lot more zest. Personally, I do think it is better than the live album. Like, I think, the opening track, We'll Meet Again, with Matt Bellamy. He has a good voice. He can bring a little bit of something to it. Reach Out, I'll Be There, I think is a cool... It's a lively cover. It at least feels like they're really putting their all into it. Nick Chester kills the vocals. A lot of it, other than that, it's just kind of going through the motions. I still think it's better than the live album. The live album was so boringly just whatever.
The live album at least has a novelty of it being live, but if this was kept as a live band doing covers, I think it would be a lot cooler of a band. That's my take on it. Trix, you got anything to say?
Cool guitar tone on the album, I guess. I actually quite enjoyed the guitar tone, but it's a covers band.
Well, that was fast.
Hey, they have a cover of Fever, and I really like that song, and Sarah Vaughan still did a better version, but here's another one.
Yeah.
Matt Bellamy tries to be really sexy and saucy during this one.
Alright, what do we want to cover next? Dominic, we've made fun out of your picks, so you pick one of ours.
Yeah.
I would say let's start with the blandest one of your twos combined. Let's talk about Joe P. Garden State Vampire.
All right. I mostly just picked this because I saw it came out, and I'll be honest, I quite enjoy me some Joe P, and I figured I'd throw it on. And I had not listened to it prior, which maybe I should have, but I enjoyed this little thing.
I mean, the best songs off here are the ones that we've already heard.
That's fair.
I like the French Blonde EP more than I expected to, so I came into this with some expectations, and I didn't hate this album, by the way. I don't think there's any album I hate, but I agree with Dominic. It's not. There's not really much flavor happening here. I don't know if it's the blandest out of our four picks. There's one which I might argue with, but this is. It's just more. It's more Joe P for the full album, but it just feels like there's not enough going on in it to justify the runtime, especially since that is padded out with songs that were already released on an earlier EP. And I respect if an artist re-records old songs to flow with the album, especially since sometimes labels go like, oh no, you have to do the EP first, all this, and then we can worry about the album or all that shit. And it can fuck with original plans. So I don't immediately throw away the put an old song on there to boost the streaming shit. But I mean, it kind of feels like that's what's been done here.
Kind of. I don't know. I in this context, those old songs don't really mean much to me. They're just kind of there. They kind of go with the album, but they also just don't. They don't stand out. They're just the filler tracks in a way. This album, like it's nice knowing that Joe P got more popular, that he was able to get better production, but this also feels like he's becoming just another indie singer-songwriter. And some of the
there's not much justifying the higher production value, is there? When it doesn't feel like there's much I guess, going on that's different in this. I mean, granted, it's a debut album. The albums can always sound a bit more like the EP's done as they're getting their footing. And also to Joe P's credit, he sounds beautiful on this album. His vocals are lovely.
Yes.
Yes.
But I mean, if I brought back James Cherry, the singer, and he had some really good production on his debut album, I don't know how far off it would be than something like this.
Mm.
Like, I don't know.
I feel like there's Joe P is more interesting in like his lyricism than James Cherry was.
Like, I don't think James Cherry would do Guilt Hole. I don't think Birthday Baby would maybe be in there. But songs like Violet or She Got Me or stuff like that, like, there's something there, but I'm losing the Joe P interest, I guess, compared to what's come before.
Yeah, I feel like so in the French Blonde EP, there was a bit more interesting or like variety that was happening on there. Like, there's no real build up or slow burners with that satisfying payoff that like Kids in the Summer had for me.
And I really like Yellow Lights off the Emily Can't Sing EP, and I thought that was really cool, but that was such a throw in that direction for that EP that it was surprising. This doesn't really have that. This really just has a very consistent sound, which can be really good, which seems like a major studio label production decision.
Well, yeah, a consistent sound is good if that sound is working, and it's not working. It's just not working. It's yeah, and if we're gonna say it with the album's a piece, we have to say it for this as well. It does, unfortunately, it doesn't. It's not able to stand out. I guess Albums for Peace couldn't stand out in its own discography, whilst this just can't stand out with the current indie landscape. I mean, I'm sure the lyricism is good. None of it could really I couldn't really remember any of the lyrics because there wasn't any kind of moments that really kind of hit lyrics-wise. But I'm sure if I looked at it again, I mean, granted, there's been quite a lot we covered this week, so that's probably not actually criticism. I don't think I can remember anything there. So I'm kind of going off vibes here, but I still just remember listening to it. There wasn't really there just wasn't really any moments that kind of like stopped me to make me go, oh, should I think about what was just said or anything like that? It was just, it happened, it went.
There was a line about 9/11 that was interesting to me, considering we've also done a little bit of a 9/11 album this week. But
and 9/11 was a week and a half ago.
Yeah, so September, we're kind of just in that. We're out of that mode, but we're in that mode. And I'm sure, Garden State Vampire Joe P is from New Jersey, so that means a lot more to him.
Yeah.
Actually, we're actually exactly a month after the release of the album as of the recording, so 2 weeks before 9/11, 2 weeks after. Weird how that goes.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't find myself not being interested in what this guy is going to be putting out because I don't know. I got bit by him, I guess. I quite enjoy his stuff. I feel the need to defend myself even though I don't need to.
I more think he needs to defend himself. Not that it's bad, but more that is it just going to be like a lot of singer-songwriter indie people where you do the interesting stuff, but then you get refined and you get beaten down into what your version of a mainstream commercial sound is.
Yeah. Who knows?
Now, I got to go on a different tangent here, on an irrelevant tangent. Luca Brasi's just announced that they're going to release a vinyl with the acoustic show that they did, which was not the one that we covered with the live show there. It was the one where if you bought the vinyl for their previous album and you got the golden ticket, you could fly down to Melbourne and catch the show, which you could only get a ticket to via that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so disappointed because there's a video of them doing theme song from HQ where basically they give up on singing because the whole crowd's gone onto the stage and started singing it instead. And that's not on the vinyl. I'm so disappointed.
I'm sorry for your loss.
I know, that would have been so great to cover, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would have, yes.
Yeah. So for those who look at Brasi fan and wonder why we don't cover it, which is just me, that's probably why.
That's your Adams for Peace.
That's my Adams for Peace. It's 9 songs as well.
Interestingly, Joe P's biggest market, looking at the Spotify chart that they always provide, Chicago.
Huh.
Like over 14,000 listeners. New York's after that, Denver, Seattle, Philadelphia. Which a lot of those make more sense, but interesting that Chicago tops it.
Yeah.
I'm lost if anything else to say about this album as well. It's a fine indie album, but it didn't hit the same way for me as French Blonde did. I think it was just that lack of variety and that kind of, well, I guess that lack of contrast that we got on French Blonde, which kind of helped the song stand out a lot more. It's just on this, and just everything's a bit too. I mean, the best songs off here, like I said, are the ones that were already released. It's not like it's a bad, like there's a bad moment on here where I really think like, why did they add this in? It's just more so of like, why didn't they add this in kind of vibe going on, but I'm not quite sure what needed to be added. So, you know, that's probably the worst type of criticism to get because it gives you absolutely no value whatsoever on what to do in the next album. But with how this sounds, it seems like you might have a label that's telling you what to do anyway.
Yeah, Atlantic Recording Corporation. Here you are, the big label.
Yeah.
It's weird that there's just 2 versions of it, and one has Guilt Hole and one doesn't. I think Guilt Hole is actually one of the bigger standout tracks, even.
Yeah,
I did listen to the one with Guilt Hole as well. Do not worry, but I didn't even realize there was another version because I only have the one version on my Spotify.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, mine gives me the option to go between them.
Mine does too.
But yeah, other than that, it's the same album. I would say Guilt Hole would probably be one of my favorites. Birthday Baby's a nice song as well. My least favorite, She Got Me and Off My Mind are tracks that I just think are kind of generic. Kind of are they almost belie the cleverness and the interest that we had in Joe P before.
Favorites for me, I'll throw out Everybody's Different. I think it's a great intro. I agree with Ritz that a lot of the good stuff has already been released, but I feel like this album will be a slow burn, and I feel like I'll be coming back to it more and more. Like, I feel like I chose this out of season in my musical rotation.
Season?
Yeah, because like I categorize music by seasons.
Okay.
I can't explain it. It's just a thing I do.
I kind of get it.
But yeah, I feel like I might have just picked it out of like my seasonal rotation for me to like make better points of this album, because I did listen to it. It's a cheese sandwich in a way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It's giving fall winter vibes.
And
we're not really there yet. We're just getting into fall now. Ritz, you're getting into what, spring?
Yep. It's been spring for a bit, pretty sure.
Yeah, I guess that's not.
But what are we getting into next? I
mean, 9/11 for 9/11. Let's talk about Nothing Full of Hell.
Alright, cool. So this is, by all accounts, a 2024 circuit album because it was released December 1, 2023. That is what we consider a 2024 circuit. It is based off the Triple J Hottest 100 way of doing it. It's just kind of how I've started doing my my lists. And yeah, so this one's been out for a while, around 10 months or so, whatever the count that is. I saw Full of Hell last month, I believe. Or maybe the month before. I can't remember when I saw them. It's been a while. Yeah, they're a. I mean, if you had listened to other Full of Hell stuff before this, you would probably be somewhat surprised because they are a lot more heavier and faster than this. But I'm pretty sure neither of you have listened to any other Full of Hell or Nothing before.
No.
Nope.
This is actually my introduction to it as well, so yeah.
Fair enough.
This album I picked because I asked for a vibe from you two. You said spooky. I didn't quite get that spooky more as I did eerie, I feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the intro.
I think you completed the assignment well enough.
Yeah.
I mean, you might be able to say that this album is a bit slow and ambient, but I don't think you can call this one a blender.
It's an experiential album, I think is better to
Yeah.
say. It is. It's an art piece that kind of stands on its own. It's not really meant to be, I don't think, listened to in the same sense of like a pop album or anything like that.
Definitely.
Definitely not.
It's not
I
structured.
saw a grindcore band open for Full of Hell, so I don't think you would put that in the same sentence as pop. Although that was great because that would have been, I think it was Maggot Cave, and they played a song that went for over a minute, and they said it was the longest grindcore song.
Fair. I mean, this is an album that starts off really strong with Rose Tinted World, and then there are other heavier parts, like, you know, yeah, but like Stars and For the Filament, a lot more ambient and slower. And then we get kind of slowing more and more down. Wild Blue is just ambience and just kind of stuff happening. Like, it's. I feel like this is the what it feels like to go through 9/11 in real time almost.
This is just the vibes of 9/11.
Yeah, like the first song is, you know, it brings in like newscasts, which I assume are from that day, just like going vibes, but I'm not sure.
Let me see if I can get it. I don't think it is, but
I will say selling a CD with the vibes of 9/11 sounds like a Tim and Eric sketch thing.
Like maybe it's because like the smoke cloud is on the cover. Like this in a way, this could be a really nice compliment to the Wailer.
Yeah, in a weird way.
But the first track really paints the scene of like what the world was like. It's a very slow day. It's a very, you know, normal newscast sort of thing. You know, you're going about the day, and then it just kind of falls apart in a way toward the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I'm looking at some of the lyrics here now as well, and then like the end of like Stars in the Firmament is a mountain of ashes we all fall down, a rain of debris we all fall down, which is I guess that's also kind of based off the there's that old like childhood kind of rhyme,
which dates back to the Black Death.
Yeah,
like Stars in the Firmament.
And it actually there's the lyrics ring around the rosies, holding hands and rosaries.
Yeah, the second track kind of feels like one of those TikTok like distorted, creepy songs, you know?
Yeah. Like
maybe not the one that plays during like a liminal space scene, but something of that nature.
Yeah, and it's I definitely agree. Kind of like in the whole experiential album that we're getting, this is something that I think you have to kind of listen to start to finish.
Yeah,
and I think you are rewarded for listening to the start to finish.
You are.
It's. I mean, I am a slut for contrast in albums, and this is as contrasting as you can get. From basically that heavy core sounding vocals to just this very soft crooning track right after. It flows so well. Is the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just difference for the sake of it. It feels like it's naturally moving in this. Like, the moments that need to be heavy are where it should be heavy, and the moments in which it should be soft is where it is soft. I don't think there's a moment in which I go, I wish it was done heavy instead. Maybe I feel like some of the crooning did go on for a little longer than needed, maybe, but it's not like that needed to be replaced with anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to have it in contrast to everything else because it reminds me of something like Nouns, where that felt so visceral and so important to what that musician was doing that it kind of transcended and took on a life of its own. And this kind of doesn't do that, but it's more direct and it's more, I don't know. Obviously something is wrong. Obviously we're meant to take stuff away from this, ironically, even though the band is called Nothing. But
I think also having seen Full of Hell live as well, it kind of makes me more appreciate the collaboration that's happening on this album. Because I talked about it with Adam's Piece, but with here, there's all these kind of like subtle moments in the instrumentation. When I saw Full of Hell live, I kind of realized now like what's actually happening there. Like at the end of Spend the Grace, you hear this kind of like electronic sounds happening there, like this distorted electronic stuff, and that's a part of Full of Hell's live set. Like the singer has like this kind of whole modular setup there.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you could hear those instrumentations happening there. I mean, nothing I know is a lot more of the ambient sounds, but Full of Hell is a lot heavier. And those two, the two sounds are coming together in this, so it actually feels like a proper collaborative album as well.
Yeah, finding ways to complement sounds and bring them together versus like, well, we're really here to celebrate one singer and whatever they're trying to do, so let's just do that.
Yeah.
It's a good album. That's how I feel about this. I don't know if it's one of those things where you can always fully recommend it to people, because it probably hits the both sounds that like people don't usually gravitate towards. You know, hardcore, metalcore, deathcore, all these core. I mean, metalcore is a bit more successful. We'll throw that one away. Grindcore, all that stuff that Full of Hell go for is not usually a successful commercially genre. The ambient sounds that are also on this as well. Yeah, I mean, they're probably a bit more commercially successful, but also I don't know that many people who gravitate toward the ambient music.
Yeah.
So this is one of those full ones that I really like this album, but it's like it feels like there's a select type of people that this album's actually for. Which don't get me wrong, that's not an insult or anything, because it makes me feel like a couple of those members are the people who wrote it.
Yeah.
It's always hard to figure out what songs and what, artists I would recommend to other people in my life. This is not really one of them. I feel like anyone listening to this with me would just be like, what the fuck are you listening to? But my brain kind of likes doing stuff like this. It likes listening. It likes trying to find the context and painting pictures. So it was very happy with that, but I don't know if it would get a whole hard recommendation other than like, do you want to audibly experience 9/11 while not experiencing 9/11? Do you want those vibes on you?
Do you want the 9/11 vibes?
Look, I listened to this album during a walk up to the road and back, and took around that time to listen to the full album. And personally, I think the best way of listening to this one is just kind of lying down and listening to it.
Yeah,
just start to finish, because it's just that type of sound that's happening on here. And maybe there's other ways this could be good. Maybe this would be good on a train ride. I don't know. I haven't listened to it on a train ride. Maybe I will. But it's one of those, if you're willing to give these types of sounds a listen, this album rewards you.
Yes, if you let it develop you,
it's first and foremost an album. And seeing as how a lot of the things we covered this week felt more like a collection of stuff more than an album, that already puts it ahead of mostly everything.
Yeah.
But then secondly, it's a good album.
It's also not one you can do a lot of favorites or least favorites where they live. Like, I mean, Rose Tinted World's obviously, I think, the standout track, but I think there's also some stuff in like Stars in the Firmament that's like really cool and muted in comparison. But they both work together to contextualize the rest of the album versus like, oh yeah, one's better than the other. My least favorite was this. I don't know.
I mean, this could theoretically. I mean, I know the songs have their starts and ends, but this could theoretically be one long song.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would almost like to hear it like that in a way.
It's one of those rare times where we don't give a favorite or least favorite because we think it's a blender or a cheese sandwich. It's just, I mean, the tracks don't actually need to be separated, even though they kind of can be. Like they are separated. You can hear the separations between the tracks. That's just what you can hear on the album. That's there. Mm-hmm. But there could have easily been a way to kind of mix this into one album. It feels, or one song. Sorry, it feels.
Yeah.
Although if I did have to pick a favorite, I think it would probably be like Stars in the Firmament. I just the kind of slowcore vibe that's almost happening on that. It just really satisfies the brain.
That's understandable. I like Set to World because of the heaviness, because of the gargantuan work that it's doing. Yeah, but you're not wrong in saying that either.
Yeah. I'll agree on Rose Tinted World being a heavy song.
Okay.
All right. You know what? I haven't picked an album in a while that we're going to cover. Trix, are you
Yeah.
ready to be disappointed with a take?
Oh no.
Sure thing.
I really thought this album was pretty bland, and I'm really disappointed. And
If I think I know the one you're talking about, because I kind of feel the same.
Oh no.
I didn't really like this Dr. Dog album.
No, I love this Dr. Dog album.
Oh no. We're gonna. Oh god. I don't like where this is headed for either of you.
What's your thoughts, Dominic? Yeah, you had a tiebreaker.
Both the Rainbow Kitten Surprise and Dr. Dog albums are the best 2 albums of the week.
Oh,
Dr. Dog is really good. I don't think the whole album is good all the way through, but God, if I'm not like right there with Lost Ones through like Tell Your Friends.
I got a big smile on my face throughout this entire album.
Like fucking Fat Dog is a vibe and a half.
It is.
Oh my god, I love the instrumentation. I love the like we talk about 60s throwbacks and stuff like that. I think not in every episode, but it comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Rarely is there a band that actually acts like it's trying to do that in a meaningful way that's like almost production from the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm ready to be wrong in the future. I've only given this the lessons that I have, and maybe I can come back and go like, oh, actually, there was this moment when this is doing something, or yeah, this is doing something. But with the lesson that I did give it, I couldn't stick with anything that was happening, and I was trying. It's not like it's not like I couldn't tell you what this album sounded like, but what it sounds like is just, in a sake, more Dr. Dog, but without the catchiness. I'm thinking back to other moments, just even on Be the Void, which I think, out of all the Dr. Dog we've covered, probably has the most memorable moments, although that might have been the only Dr. Dog we actually covered. I can't remember how much we had.
I think it is.
We covered something else that had some,
we covered
the same track.
We covered the B, the B-side EP, which had the actual title track on there, which I thought was actually one of their best songs. And
on that note, the funniness of the Garden State Vampire being a lyric on Guilt Hole was very funny to me.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But, like, the opener to Be the Void, Lonesome, which really properly set up, is a really catchy, minimalistic tune, which I think that was a really good opener that I had on there. It kind of sets up the vibe of that album and then draws you in. But here, there's just nothing of that moment for me. It's just... It's not like it's a sound that's... it's not like Joe P, in which I could say it's fighting with the rest of the indie soundscape. I think there's still... you got the kind of unique Dr. Dog sound that's happening on this album. So it's not like a case of this sounds like everything else that's happening there. But I feel like it's just not... the way that they're exploring the sound on this album is just not doing anything really with it.
I could not disagree more.
Finally, we're dissonant in this Dissonant Waves.
This is an album that to me feels like cheap lounges and karaoke acts from like men that are dressed in suits 40 years out of date, but still nonetheless own up to whatever it is they're trying to be at this point. It's like if a movie came out and Nicolas Cage was like crooning to What a Night'll Do, boy howdy would that scene be popular.
Yeah. I'd like to just point out, I looked up, we did cover that Dr. Dog EP with Be the Void. And you want to know what else we covered that episode?
What?
Joe P.
French Blonde.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
I guess I had a plan, a cosmic plan.
But like Fat Dog is a song that it's very holiday in a way to me. It's very chill, very like nostalgic. Like there's a certain amount of sadness, a certain amount of cheapness, a certain amount of pity that kind of runs through this album that is more about the aesthetic. It's not a cheap album, it's just that it's idolizing things and kind of harkening back to an era of like the crooners, the Sinatras,
It's a flavor of Americana we don't see that much anymore.
The adult contemporary genre, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of through the lens of like the 90s and later, where those things were already very dated and archaic. And, you know, Dennis Hopper and Blue Velvet is kind of what I'm thinking of. Something very Lynchian, something very Boogie Nights, maybe Burt Lancaster and Boogie Nights. Or Burt Reynolds and Boogie Nights, I mean to say. But yeah, this was actually really surprising and impressive to me. This is the week I was hoping that Dr. Dog would like have its standout moment and we would like finally get there. Because I feel like every time we do Dr. Dog, we like it, but it's never the focus.
Yeah. And Dr. Dog will get its day. I do need to cover more Dr. Dog. There's something about this band where I love everything they've put out. Like every song is just a smile on my face. Can't explain it.
I can see it. I can understand why. There's a certain amount of earnestness and a certain amount of just, well, here's a song. What can they do with it? Like the singing choices are really interesting. The way everything plays with what might be a simple traditional ballad or something like that, it just hits in a really interesting way to me.
That it does.
I wish I could have the same enthusiasm that you two have had for this album, but I'm just not getting any of it from you. It's just in a sense, it's not to say that this is like a poorly made album or anything like that. No, I think this is quite, like, the performances on this album are quite sound and everything like that. It's just the actual concepts, I guess, of the songs and just the way that they go. They're hitting nothing. I struggle to have anything of this album stick with me other than, I guess, what it sounds like, but not exactly how it goes, just because I don't know, it's again one of those, I don't call it bad, but I really wasn't interested in this.
So I guess Ritz isn't too big into country like we thought he was.
No, but he's learning, you know? We can't...
Yeah, he's learning.
Be totally critical. We've made a lot of progress in 5 years.
We have.
Just wait until you see what I pick next week.
Oh. I'm excited.
I mean, real one should already know. But
I'm going to say straight up, though, if I'm thinking of what are my top 3 albums of the year so far, it's Donny Benet, this, and Rainbow Kitten Surprise.
Wow.
That Donny Benet album is good, though.
It is.
Like, it's been a really late year for me, really liking albums from this year. Like,
no, I get that. I think there's been a couple strong albums this year, but I don't think there's been that big highlight that we've had in the past couple of years.
Like, we're covering a good
usually
amount.
by this point in the year, I'm like, oh yeah, these are the songs that are going to be like fighting for number one. These are the albums that are fighting for number one. But if you held a gun to my head and told me to answer what would be number one right now for both of those, I would tell you to just shoot me.
I feel the same way. Usually we're coalescing, usually we're cooking, and this is the part of the year where we're just like adding on fucking hit after hit after hit because Ritz just knows how to pick them.
Yeah.
But this is I think now when we're finally getting that development this late in the year.
Yeah.
I'm curious how we'll end, but I'm really liking this. I think some of these songs will be in my song list. This will be somewhere in my top 10 probably.
Yeah. I agree with that. This album's just so much fun.
Yeah. I guess favorites, least favorites. Fucking Fat Dog. Holy shit. Really like that song a lot. But Talk Is Cheap is really fun too. What a Night Will Do. Lost Ones. That whole section just really fucking goes. Tell Your Friends. Another great one. The second half is not as strong, but it's still good. Still interesting. God, I wish an album would have that kind of run of songs more often.
I'll agree with a lot of your picks too, Domino. But I'll also like to highlight Handyman and Love Struck. I actually really quite like those songs.
My least favorite's probably Authority. I feel like the album starts at track 2 almost.
No least favorite for me.
It's really just a blender. I'm sorry to say, and this I feel is out of everything the biggest of the blenders.
That is surprising.
Wow. Yeah.
Considering, I would say you would think Adam's for Peace was a blunder, and that's my number 3 of the week. So, But now we have nothing left but the biggest album of the bunch, the return of Rainbow Kitten Surprise, Love Hate Music Box, 22 tracks.
Yup.
So Dominic, what if I told you I hated this album? I mean, I don't, but what if I told you?
I would cry.
Yeah, that's fair. No, this one I enjoyed a lot more, Trix. This is not what I was originally planning for, but I will say that I think if this album was half the length, it would have a better shot at it being being in that top 3 that Dominic's kind of talking about.
Yeah, I agree.
For an album that is as long as this is, with as many tracks as this has, I am super impressed with how well they're able to upkeep the quality song to song. Not all of them are hits. Some of them are more low key, and I think you need that contrast. But like, there are just some really, really, really beautiful moments and really, really, really interesting changes to their sound, instrumentation.
Yeah.
There's so much more use of like vocal affectation and like electronic elements to change up how they sound. Like they're getting far away from the folky like grassroots just guitar and singer thing that we were used to.
Yeah.
So the one thing I will say that I felt about this album though, and I do really enjoy the majority of this album, but it does have change-ups. It's not like this is the same song over and over and over. It's not. The vocalists, I've forgotten her name.
Ella Mello.
Ella, yeah. I couldn't even remember her dead name. That's how long it's been since we talked about Rainbow Kitten Surprise.
Yeah.
But I do remember she's always had quite an impressive vocal performance. Just the way that she can flow kind of fast and slow, just kind of seamlessly with each other. And that feels quite prevalent on this album as well.
Yes.
But after Superstar, I started to feel fatigue. The problem is that it's quite a long album, and it's not to say that every album that goes for an hour induces fatigue as well. It's not because this is a long album that it's a fatigue. It's because it feels like the evolution that happens with all the changes. Between song and song here becomes so minimal that you kind of start to lose some of the excitement, and by the end of it, you're not going like, oh, where are they going with this? Like, you kind of already expect it, and I guess the comparison we can do it with is the Oolong album. And I know Dominic's gonna hate that, but I'm gonna compare it to the Oolong album.
I can understand why you would. I'm not gonna totally
because that has a very kind of similar vibe going on with its length in there, and I think whilst there are, I personally believe that Oolong album has some strong highlights off it. And I also believe this album has some strong highlights off it. Like songs like SVO, Superstar, even the Casey Musgraves collaboration. You'll get me celebrating some country here.
What a get.
I think that is a massive get, as Trix grinds her teeth. But there's just a lot of similarities on here that it becomes hard to kind of pick out some of the other moments in this, and it just creates a bit of fatigue. There could have been some stuff cut off this.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna deny any of that. I'm not gonna disagree with any of that. What I will disagree with is I think you mentioned Superstar specifically, but right after Superstar is one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's so many times that I find myself being surprised by a beat choice, by a direction a song went. I was really expecting to have that fatigue, knowing how long this is and how many songs there are, but like, God, Cinderella is one of the most interesting and like catchy ones on here. Like, and then a couple tracks later, you have fucking Rabbit Run, which just has the fucking guitar from Metallica's One.
Yeah,
it's the beat, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? It's hilarious almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a really odd choice, and that song probably honestly should be cut because it's more distracting than anything else.
Yeah.
I do really like that it's here because what a choice. But even before that, like,
Indeed.
a song like Ghoul, I could not imagine a song like Ghoul existing 5 years ago from Rainbow Kitten Surprise.
It's kind of crazy to think about. The last album was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
How to Friend Love Freefall. We covered that, I think, when it was new, question mark?
No,
it was a year old at that point.
Yeah,
it was a year old.
God, that even longer.
I mean, we had the single last year, which I actually put into my top 100 if I Stop, Drop, Roll, which isn't even on here.
And none of their singles between made it.
Which means it's probably
a shame. I liked Work Out in Our Song.
There's probably a lot of songs that they've written for this album that have just been cut. That's insane. I mean, I guess with 6 years, you do have a lot of time. Obviously, they wouldn't have been spending all that 6 years working on this. I remember they were supposed to tour Australia, and then they had a medical emergency or something they claimed, and didn't come. I don't know exactly what actually happened, but I think they said they weren't going to tour for the rest of the year afterwards, which I think was true. I could be wrong, but I think that was true.
Well, then
when was their last show? Maybe
that was in 2023, and then almost a year later, their bassist left the band. I don't know. Those two may not be related, but that is something that did happen.
Their last show was May 19, 2023 and 2023, and then they played again May 6, 2024. So they had around a year off, which that's fair. I'm not going to speculate between what actually happened or anything like that, but I'm going to assume for a period of that time as well that they weren't working on the album.
I mean, I think a good portion of this period was also focusing on Ella's transition.
Yep.
Getting
that was a big change that came out during COVID. So that is a fair thing as well.
Still some of the greatest fucks in the business.
Yep.
I think Ella's voice still remains just an amazing thing.
It really does.
Like there's some really good singing passages, but there's just a lot of really good like just stanzas and verses just done rhythmically, and I really dig the amount of variety that there is. It feels like it's one of the bands that really feels like they could do anything. Ella could do anything. They just got to find the right beat and the right cadence.
Yeah.
Like God, Sex Set, what a great song. Finalist, really interesting. Even like just ending strong with Thanks for Coming, where Ella just really is able to get off and go vocally. It feels like even that she was holding back before that, and she definitely wasn't. But so much happens on that song that it feels like a celebration of this is the new Rainbow Kitten Surprise, and we're just
it's not that different from the old Rainbow Kitten Surprise.
No,
to be fair.
But we got a party. We've got synths. We've got electronics. We've got things that keep Rainbow Kitten Surprise updated and new, but also not.
And it's definitely an ambitious album that they put out, and for the most part, they've succeeded on this album. And again, I feel like this is an album that could still be cut. I think that's my main kind of thing on here, is that there is just a lot of unnecessary just songs on here that just I feel like I guess I can't say specific. I feel like personally I would cut most of the second half is the thing, and I know that's going to be a disagreement because you're praising it hard, but I feel like most after Superstar I've kind of just gotten nothing from. I mean, I don't know, you talk about those highlights and like Thanks for Coming and in Cinderella, and I'll probably have to give Thanks for Coming another proper listen before I give another judgment on that, because the fatigue had set in by then.
I think Re-Entry is almost a fun little coda to Friend Love Freefall. Started with like Mission to Mars.
A little.
Like
I can see that.
We've seen Rainbow Kitten Surprise in a lot of different places with every album. Like RKS is the one that we thought was kind of not their best, kind of bland in some ways. So in comparison to that, this is definitely not that.
Oh yeah.
No.
Seven and Mary was something that grew over time. It's EPs, it's an album, it's an exploration of ideas. Friend Love Freefall was the thematic one. Very tight, 36.5 minutes.
I still listen to Matchbox quite regularly. I think that's got some of the most impressive kind of flows on vocals I've heard on a song.
I still listen to Mission to Mars a lot.
Yeah.
But I think this is the album that, I don't know if it tops them all, but it sure recontextualizes everything and brings, like, it feels like a whole new wide swath of discography to, like, integrate with everything else.
Yeah. I guess I should talk for a moment about why I was a little disappointed in this album.
Please do.
And I think it's just that I listened to this a couple times and it just hasn't grabbed me in the way that How to Find Love Freefall has had on the first listen. And I get that I'm chasing something that I really shouldn't be with something like that. But I don't know. I feel like it's just, there's a lot of album here, and that's also on me for picking a lot of stuff, but I was able to listen to it all quite a bit. But I think that if Love Hate Music Box was like split up into two parts, and like the Love Hate half and the Music Box half or something, and just did like an even split in the middle, 11 tracks, and like gave you like a couple months to marinate on the first half before they released the second. Almost kind of like a trilogy, but I feel like it would work better in this context.
I mean, you're saying this is not their speaker box Love Below, essentially?
Yeah.
Like, in a way, that's what it feels like to me, is like it's their double album, but like we just don't talk about it that way.
Yeah.
I really want to know what it's going to be like when we're a little bit removed from this and it's just kind of accepted that this is just a large album and we're not like doing it for the podcast, right? We're just kind of letting it breathe.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot on this week. I think there's a lot in this week that has that. Like I said, I could be wrong about Dr. Dog. At the current moment, I don't feel I am. I think there will be moments in this. I think this is the one that's more likely to go, okay, now that I don't have that fatigue, now I can kind of properly let it come in. I can more appreciate what certain songs are doing. And I will try and give this another listen. And there are definitely moments on this which I'm already quite keen on. So I guess the remainder of this year will come to show. I guess cement any thoughts about this album.
Yeah. This album could very well grow on me. This could become my favorite Rainbow Kitten Surprise album. Who knows? Just right now it's a lot, and that's on me. But still, I feel like it was important to pick this week.
In some ways, it might be my favorite of their albums. But I also, I do like a number of their other albums quite a bit. But this might be like reigniting my interest in a way in the band that I just haven't felt in a very long time. Like, I think with this album, they are among my favorite finds of this show.
That's fair enough.
Like, up there with the Petite Leagues, up there with the Paranols and the Home Is Wares and all that.
All right.
So, thank you for picking them, Trix, and putting them on the podcast.
Hey, no problem. I still regret not seeing them live in 2019.
It's amazing to think, too, that this is the first time we're covering them in the context of it being a new album.
Yeah.
For everything we've done and everything we've covered over the years, we just were not old enough to be there in 2018.
Yeah.
All right. I guess favorites, least favorites time. I'll start just to make it help, just to give you some time. Favorites of this SVO, Superstar, Overtime, I think are the highlights. I do like Peter Pan as well, and the intro, I think it does. Especially with kind of like, I believe there's a little bit of a sample happening at the start there, if memory serves me correct. It helps kind of draw you into this album. Least favorite, probably something like Best Man with Daddy Yankee. I think that's just really where those are the moments where I can go and say, okay, yeah, I've got the fatigue on this album.
I'm gonna go through an order here. 6 set finalist: SVO, Ghoul, John Woo, Bear Walk, Cinderella, Best Man, Re-Entry, and Thanks for Coming are my favorites. I'm gonna say my least favorite, like Daddy Yankee, is maybe realistically one of the more boring tracks. But I want to say my least favorite is Rabbit Run, even though I am interested in it just because of how distracting it is that it's just that one guitar part from Metallica's one.
It's the sequel to My Dream Girl Don't Exist and When I Come Around.
I mean, yes, but yes, but this is so blatant.
Yeah. Favorites for me, I'll say Superstar and Overtime. Least favorite, yeah, Rabbit Run. And I really need to let this album grow on me. I need to let it marinate, percolate. Other synonyms.
All right. Well, you know what time it is. It's time to do the rankings for the week.
Boy.
I'll get started.
All
on this.
right.
I don't think mine are going to come too much as a surprise. Least favorite is Jaded Hearts Club.
Mm-hmm.
Shocker. Then it's a split between these two, but I think it's Dr. Dog, sorry, and then Adam's the Piece.
Okay.
Then I'm going to put the Rainbow Kitten Surprise. I think I'm gonna. Oh no! Sorry, wait. Hold on. Let me scroll back. It's gonna be Joe P. Kind of tied with them. I think I'm gonna do it as Jaded Hearts Club, Dr. Dog, Joe P, Adam's the Piece, Rainbow Kitten Surprise, and Full of Hell, and nothing.
That's your top of the week? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I'm going to throw Jaded Hearts Club Band at the bottom. Then Adams for Peace. Then I'm going to do Joe P. Then I'm going to do When No Birds Sang. Then Love Hate Music Box and Dr. Dog at the top.
All right, at the bottom for me, we got Joe P. After that, we will do Jaded Hearts Club. Then When No Birds Sang. Then we'll do Adams for Peace. Dr. Dog. And at the top is Rainbow Kitten Surprise.
All right.
What is coming next week? And I will start. We are coming into the very last parts of this journey. The last direct comparison week. We've got Tom York's Tomorrow's Modern Boxes. And we got Matt Bellamy's debut album, Cryosleep.
All right.
This is the last stop before we get back to the most current and final albums by Muse and Radio. And I have something really fun planned for that, so stay tuned for what's coming after that.
Trix, do you want to go next, or do you want to go last?
Yeah, I can go. I can go next. I'm going to, as penance for my sins, I have a little 34-minute Egg Punk album. This is probably actually one of my first exposures to Egg Punk outside of Uranium Club, and that is Power Plants, People in the Sun.
I've heard of Power Plants. I think I've listened to a couple of their songs. I'm interested. Okay, so I'm picking two things. One of them is going to be a slowcore album. So I guess the question or the vibe of the slowcore album is: do you want it a bit more scramsy and all over the place, or one that's a lot more kind of mature sounding? 5 seconds, both of you.
Mature.
I'm going to go with mature as well.
Okay, cool. So we are picking Freight's debut, Freight, and I also said we're going to pick I'll wait until what I'm picking next week when you two were discussing how much I hated country, and I think it should be obvious which one I'm picking. It's the new MJ Linderman.
All right.
Manning Fireworks. That's it.
Okay, so that means that next week is Tom York's Tomorrow's Modern Boxes, which may have been the first major album to be released first on BitTorrent. I can't remember. Then Matt Bellamy's Cryosleep. Trix, you said the band was Power Plants, People in the Sun.
Yep.
Ritz, you said Freight by Freight.
Yep.
And MJ Linderman's Manning Fireworks. All right.
Yep.
A bit of a simpler week next week. That's totally fine. My name is Dominic. Catch me online at DACICHOCKI on Twitter. Dominic Chikoka on YouTube if you must. I'm also on the Games My Mom Found podcast sometimes. Check out the link in the description, please.
I've been riddling. I'm kind of hurrying up right now, so just catch me on whatever's in the description.
And I've been Trix, and you can catch me nowhere. I do not exist anymore.
My dream
You have
girl
to let
don't
the car
exist.
crash go.
All right. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.